Kansas has its sights set on going 4-0. This is how we'll get there.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the
man. Welcome back, you guys, to the KC Sports Authority podcast. My name is JB, and yeah, I'm rocking it solo again. Keegan's still on vacation. We're going to get through this one. And guys, we're getting ready for this BYU game. It is game day today. And we got to get ready. We got to get pumped. And this game is going to be a big one. So let's talk about that. We're going to keep this short again. But let's kind of talk about that. I think we've had some time to kind of come down from the anxiety of the Nevada game. We talked about the Nevada game in our latest episode, so go back and look at that if you haven't already. There's some nice highlights in there, so I think it's a nice watch. I am a little bit biased because, well, I was hosting that one and doing it solo as well. So, but support us, go watch our old content, and let us know how we're doing. We would greatly appreciate the feedback there. But yeah, we're coming off of a win in Nevada that initially we thought was going to be an easy game. It ended up not being so easy, but you know what? I think there's a lot of takeaways that we can get from that game. And, we talked about it in the recap, but moving forward, we have our sights set on BYU and going 4-0. And it'll be the first time that we go back-to-back 4-0. Probably, what is the number? It's 100 plus years, 110, 120 years, whatever it is. I'm fairly confident that there's not a Jayhawk fan alive that has seen back-to-back 4-0 seasons. We are on the cusp of just relevancy again. And I know it's not the most fun to be like, hey, we're relevant. Hey, guys, we're back. KU football is back. Because it makes us look a little silly. But you know what? I'm going to look silly all I want. Put the red ball on my nose and call me Bozo the Clown. But, man, I am a KU Jayhawk all the way, and I am happy. I am happy that we are having so much success this year and last year. It's time to build on it. So, moving into this game, this is going to be our Big 12 opener. Man, we're already here at Big 12 play, and the biggest thing about this is we need a win. And I think we can get this win over BYU. We'll talk about why. But, man, think about the Big 12 title race. And, there's some KU hopefuls out there that think KU actually has a shot at getting the Big 12 title. Of course, we would need a lot of things to go right to make that happen. But I think that's in the cards. Would I bet on it? Probably not, but that's okay. I'm trying to be a little bit realistic here. But this is a real chance to stake our claim in the Big 12. Both of us, KU and BYU, are coming into this game 3-0. So this is not a team that we need to take lightly. I think back to the Illinois game and the preview for the Illinois game, and I see a lot of similarities between BYU and Illinois in the sense of, these are two big physical teams. And if you're not careful, mistakes can be made and the game can get out of hand. And if you remember from the Illinois game, we came out and ran over their defensive line almost quite literally, right? We did amazing in that game. If we can tap into that, I think we're going to be okay. So, some things to clean up following the Nevada game that I'd like to see into this BYU game. Really, it kind of comes down to awareness on defense, keeping an eye for the ball. Because the two biggest things that really cost us last week were penalties and turnovers. And not only that, but when the fumbles would come from Nevada, right? We had 5 unrecovered fumbles from Nevada. If we just have an eye for the ball, that Nevada game would have gone a lot differently. If we can continue to be physical, if we can force fumbles and spell that same game script for BYU, I think if we're tackling them and kicking balls out or swiping balls away and falling on the ball, and being ultra aggressive, I think that's a recipe for success against this BYU team. So that's priority number one. That's priority number one. Priority number two is keeping a calmer head. So let's talk about some of the positives that are going for KU in this game. Number one, I think lately we've seen I wouldn't say a resurgence or even an awakening because we know he's been here, but Devin Neal, man, Devin Neal has been on a tear lately, and I think Devin Neal is going to have another big game. This is going to be his opportunity to cement himself as KU's running back to fear in the eyes of BYU. You know, BYU is going to, of course, have a game plan for Devin Neal, but I think this is an opportunity for Devin Neal to predict what that game plan is and then just counteract that and have an incredible game. He is slithery enough to go on and weave through whatever defense they throw at him, almost literally. I'm looking forward to a big Devin Neal game. Some ways that we can take advantage of that are in this rushing game. You know, some of the ways that we can take advantage of our matchup in general over BYU is in our rushing game. Three major advantages over here that I'm noticing. Number one is the rushing yards per game for Kansas versus the rushing yards per game for BYU. Kansas is at, let me look at this, 216 yards per game to BYU's 78 yards per game in the rushing game. That's a big, big disparity. That is huge. So does that mean that BYU can't run the ball? No, I think they're a little bit more physical than we might be anticipating right off the bat. You know, if we're lacking in our focus, again, we got to stay focused. They can run us into the ground. So we're trying to be careful there. But if we play to our strengths, aka Devin Neal, we can absolutely dominate this game. And not only in the passing game, we can dominate this game in the air as well. So let me get this right again. KU 10.1 yards per pass to BYU's 7.7. Okay. It's not as big of a difference between the rushing yards per game, but that's still an advantage for KU. And the third advantage that KU has is on third downs, where, again, going to get my numbers right, 62.86% on KU's third down efficiency. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Part of that, of course, is because of Jalen Daniels. Our quarterback has been a magician out there. BYU, 31.58%. Okay, BYU is half as good as us on third downs. Now, both teams have a good enough sample size to where I look at that disparity and think, okay, all we need to do is play our game. You know, I'm looking at the rushing, I'm looking at the passing, I'm looking at the third downs, and I think all we have to do is play our game. And again, stay locked in, and we should be all right. Because BYU, as much as we've kind of exposed some of their weaknesses just so far in this conversation, they are coming off a huge win. BYU has just come off a big win against Arkansas, and Arkansas was a team that we lost to in the bowl game last year. Still not over that. Still not over that loss. But you know what? We can get past that, I think, with another great season, and it starts by beating BYU over here and going 4-0. Again, I'm just so focused on this 4-0. I can feel it. I can feel it. But, you know, from the Nevada game, if we can just clean up the mistakes and, you know, build on our strengths from the Illinois game, I think that's the number one way that we can really come out on top. Now, I wonder if we see more of Dylan McDuffie in this game, because one thing that does scare me is BYU is pretty decent at forcing turnovers. We have seen some trouble, not a whole lot, but some trouble with Daniel Highshaw fumbling the ball. It seems to happen every game. I think it has happened every game. And we've been lucky to not turn it over every single time that has happened. But if we're in a situation where another fumble causes another turnover and BYU happens to have great field advantage, this is not going to spell success for us. So we're going to want to clean that up. But you know what? I think overall, I see this game, like I said, being a lot like the Illinois game. Final predictions. I'm going to wrap this up with some final predictions. I'm going to predict that we come out hot just like we did against Illinois. This is a home game. We're coming back home. I think the guys are rested up and energized following that road trip to Nevada. And my final score prediction is a little bit of a wild one. I'm going to go with 31-23 in favor of Kansas. And really, the main reason I think we will have a solid win. Now we are favored by 8.5, 9.5 points, somewhere around there, I believe. I really see that number being true to the capabilities of this team. When we're back home, we're going to be playing really well. I think Lance Leipold is going to have a fire lit under our guys to start off Big 12 play right. BYU, they play a lot of tough teams. They might not be used to the Big 12 and the physicality of the Big 12, but that doesn't mean that they're not used to the physicality that we could show them. Overall, the jitters for BYU will be too much for them to overcome. And I think we're going to do great against them and have a dominant win where it's got some safety net to it, where it's not just, oh gosh, I hope we don't throw the game away on the final play. No, I think we're going to win by a score and a half or so. BYU, I'm not trying to be too mean, but man, welcome to the Big 12. I'm sorry that you had to play Kansas right off the bat, but it's going to be a loss for you. So, last thing is if we do see any rain in the game or any thunder delays or anything like that, we'll have to monitor that. I've heard conflicting sources as far as, is it going to rain? Is there going to be a rain delay? If it's raining, I'm kind of thinking back to the West Virginia game, and I'm picturing this is last year when that iconic clip of Jalen Daniels just locked and loaded, nodding his head as we go into overtime. He's ready for this game. I'm nodding my head right alongside Jalen Daniels. I'm ready. It's game time. We're going to beat BYU. We're going to go in 4-0 to that Texas game in the next week. And man, oh man, that's going to be a big one. Hopefully College game day, right? And man, you already know we're going to be covering it. Hopefully, of course, by then, Keegan will be back and we'll have the whole crew together to preview the Texas game for you. Definitely make sure to watch our content, watch our shorts, like and subscribe, all of that. Follow us on our social medias, on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. Follow us on everything. We are grinding, you guys, and lately we've seen an upsurge in subscribers. So thank you so much. You guys are really pumping us up to do some great work. We'll talk again soon. We'll talk again after this BYU win, right? Hopefully. And you already know, rock chalk, baby.